The Super Mario Bros. Movie has changed Hollywood. It has altered entertainment and the way we look at animated feature films. It has twisted the landscape so that now it is not Disney that sits atop the mountain, looking down at all the other companies and gloating about all of their properties. No, it is Disney that fears the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. And yes, the plucky plumber Everyman has done fantastic in its opening. The first less than 30 days, it has already crossed the $1 billion mark. But is it enough to reach that coveted top spot above all other animated feature films? Well, let's find out. Hello and welcome, folks. We're here to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of that culture curve. It's what we do each and every day right here on the WDW Pro channel. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about that notification bell. We're looking today at whether or not the Super Mario Bros. Movie can still sit atop the entire mountain of animated feature films in terms of worldwide box office. In order for it to become the top domestic box office movie, it's actually far easier. But getting on top of the worldwide total, and that's the big number that people want to be on top of, well, it's going to be harder. And it's going to be harder because, in fact, we are at the Golden Week, and we were waiting to see what Japan and South Korea would do in terms of adding to that worldwide box office haul. We have those numbers now. Let's take a look and see, did Japan, did South Korea, did they contribute like they needed to? This out of Deadline by Nancy Tartaglione. Peaches and Green, love that. Super Mario Bros. Movie tops 1 billion worldwide, smashes studio records in Japan and the international box office. Note, however, these studio records in Japan, the word studio is key here. Let's pay attention. All right. Illumination, Nintendo Universal's The Super Mario Bros. Movie has gotten some super game as it levels up to cross $1 billion at the global box office through Sunday. It now becomes the 10th animated film in history to cross 1 billion worldwide, and it is the 10th biggest animated film of all time globally, overtaking Despicable Me 2 and Minions: The Rise of Gru. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is the third Illumination title to hit the $1 billion mark. Let's pause here because we also need to note something important in this first paragraph. Yes, it is overtaking some of these Despicable Me movies, but it also needs to be noted that they're fantastic, and this movie is fantastic because the budget for these is significantly lower than the Disney-produced films. So as we are looking at these totals, remember that the profits are far larger for these Illumination movies because they don't spend as much money to make them. Not only that, but when it comes to Super Mario, well, it's even more lucrative because Nintendo tossed in money to help get this thing produced and get it across the line. The Juggernaut powered up to an additional $68.3 million this session in 80 overseas markets, bringing its international receipts to date through Sunday to $532.5 million. By the way, that is right about as close to a 1-to-1 ratio between domestic and international as you can get. Worldwide, the estimate through today is $1.022 billion. So indeed, over that $1 billion mark. It's a big deal. Now, here's the key thing, and we're going to get into some not so great news. Notably, Japan opened this weekend on 776 screens. The start was a huge 14.3 million to score the biggest opening weekend ever for an animated studio movie, as well as the biggest Saturday box office in Universal history, topping Jurassic World Dominion. In only 2 days, Super Mario became the fastest Universal film to reach 1 billion yen, and the weekend result is the biggest Universal opening of all time. Korea, which was another market we were watching very closely, about to 5.7 million with strong business on the weekend days. Playing into holidays next week, it's got a 96% CGV egg score and had the biggest non-holiday Illumination opening in line with Jungle Book, Rise of Gru, Secret Life of Pets, and Minions. It goes on to talk about more of those markets. And by the way, Mexico loves Mario. Take note of that. Now, here's why this is bad news, though, folks. For those of us who've been watching this and thinking that Super Mario might have a shot at becoming the #1 animated film, that was predicated on the idea that Japan and Korea would be dropping in more than what we're currently seeing. Yes, it's true. This is the biggest animated feature film opening in Japan, but it's not even close, to the biggest film opening ever, and that's a big difference. At 14.3 and 5.7, Japan and Korea opened with about 20 million. Now, we had anticipated, based on prior huge movies with big national draw and interest, that Japan and Korea combined could add somewhere around $150 million. However, in the first weekend, they have only added about 20 million. That means that in Japan and Korea, this movie would need to get a 5x, 5 times what it has currently made, and that is a big ask out of the movie. You do have to give credit to Nintendo. They came up with a brilliant plan to try to draw as much money as possible out of these two markets. Yes, they completely rewrote the script. It's almost a different movie in terms of the language, not just in terms of the language, but in terms of what is being said in the dialogue, the jokes that are being had, because they rewrote the Japanese script so that it would be in line with what Japanese audiences want. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody do that before with a movie where they didn't just go in and translate it. And they didn't just go in and alter a few scenes or take a few things out that wouldn't make sense in the culture, but to actually go in and write 2 different movies that line up scene by scene, but are still significantly different. So kudos to Nintendo for attempting it, but this is still going to need a 5x to reach that 100 million mark, less than the 150 we even talked about. So the 5x to reach 100, and I really do believe that these two markets need to give this movie 100 million in order for it to have a shot at reaching that top spot. I just don't know that it can do it, and that's unfortunate. Let's read a little bit farther, though. To date, Super Mario is performing above many comps. For example, and excluding Finicky China, it's over Jurassic World by 12%, 16% ahead of Frozen 2, 27% in front of Minions, 32% over Beauty and the Beast, 33% ahead of Spider-Man Far From Home, and 51% above last year's Minions: The Rise of Gru. Now, the key one that we want to look at here is that it is ahead of Frozen 2, and that is the current record holder for worldwide box office. It is 16% ahead of Frozen 2 in terms of day-to-day comparison. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. Now, the issue is going to be that Super Mario Brothers has had an open runway until now, and now it is going to be going up against Guardians of the Galaxy. And so that is going to alter sort of the trajectory. We will see how much that impacts. Before we hop over to the next chart, here's what happened with Frozen 2. And here's what could happen with Super Mario. When Frozen 2 debuted, it had a great run, just like Super Mario Brothers. In fact, it outpaced what Disney was anticipating. However, it was still expected to not do so well once the Star Wars finale of the Skywalker saga hit, that being the Rise of Skywalker, some call the Rise of Palpatine. But that movie came in and underperformed so tremendously that Frozen 2 legged out with just amazing numbers all through the holiday season and then all through January and February. And that is what lifted that movie to being the number 1 movie animated-wise in terms of box office retail all over the world. Now, for Super Mario, it would need something similar to happen. It would need Guardians of the Galaxy, which right now has a lower number on Rotten Tomatoes than I had anticipated seeing. I thought it would hit 88%, 90%, somewhere around there. I thought that critics would be praising it because it's the final Guardians of the Galaxy. It's James Gunn's last movie, and I thought they would take him on as a cause to celebrate. But it's down there at 78% right now, and it could drop. I don't know. Maybe this is another Rise of Palpatine situation. I am talking with people who've already seen the movie. I'm going to go see it myself, but I don't know. But it may not be as happy and chipper as the other films, and that may pull some people away. All right, so let's go to the chart. Let's take a look at this.
Make sure to catch the Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.
All right, if we take a look at the numbers, what we can see here is the overall chart. Now, this is domestic. You may be wondering, hey, Pro, why is Incredibles 2 on top? Why is Frozen 2 not on top? You said Frozen 2. Well, Incredibles 2 is the top of the domestic. Frozen 2 is the top of the worldwide. So more people internationally went to see Frozen 2, and that lifted the whole thing up. So in blue, we've got Incredibles 2. In yellow, we've got Frozen 2. In red, we have the Super Mario Brothers movie. It needs to be said also that Super Mario Brothers is the first movie in what we assume to be a huge, sprawling cinematic universe. Incredibles 2 and Frozen 2 are the sequels and therefore have baked in higher interest. Although, I guess you have to say that Super Mario had even higher interest based on the fact that it has decades of video games of people playing it. Now, if we look here, if you follow this chart along, you see that it is outpacing domestically Frozen 2 significantly. However, what we're looking for is this curve, all right? We're in that stage now where these big movies, they've been exposed at the box office long enough that some people no longer want to go see them because they've either already seen them or they have no interest. And we're getting to the point where those repeat viewings are beginning to diminish. Can the Super Mario Brothers movie now, which has been below Incredibles 2 in terms of the domestic haul, can it get atop this based on Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and its reception? Does it pull families, or is it too macabre, too sad, too depressing to bring kids to? Do characters die? We don't know. But if that happens, then perhaps Mario can continue to leg this thing out. Now, it is going to face some other competitions that it's going to be going up against. Let's take a look at this out of Ella's list. And this is the list of movies that are coming out this summer. You can see that Super Mario Brothers movie, it's already out, of course. Peter Pan and Wendy came to Disney Plus almost exclusively and is ridiculously bad. By the way, video coming out on this one this afternoon. This movie actually exposes the critics once again in a way that you are going to be amazed by. They seem determined to put themselves fully and firmly in irrelevancy. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, that's the one we're watching for, right? Coming out in just 3 days. How will this one perform with families? Families, that's what we're watching. We don't care necessarily about the overall numbers. We care about, does this film pull in kids, right? The 8-year-olds, the 9-year-olds, the 10-year-olds. If it's seen as too mature, then perhaps Super Mario Brothers still has that entire demographic to itself. The big competition is going to come May 25th. That from The Little Mermaid. But we don't know what's going to happen here. Everything is seeming to indicate that this movie is going to underperform. In fact, what we looked at yesterday on the Renegade Online show, go check that out, was that The Little Mermaid is currently tracking to only hit around $500 to $600 million worldwide. It will be a huge fail, a huge flop for Disney if that happens. A tremendous downfall. But that's still enough money to begin eating deeply into Mario. And it needs to be said that both of these Disney films, well, they're going to be taking up those premium screens, and that's where the money is. Can Mario hang on, though, at the little screens? We're going to find out. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, June 1st. That is really the big one. That's the one that I think is going to have the biggest hit onto Mario. But that means that Mario has a full month to run. A full month. And so that's a big deal. Elemental, I don't think will be dramatic in terms of its box office pull. In fact, I think this is going to be more egg on the face of Pixar. Tracking that we have seen suggests that this film has absolutely no traction whatsoever. And then you can see that after that, this is a little old. The Marvels is not coming out on that date. Instead, Haunted Mansion has been slid to there, and I don't think Haunted Mansion has an impact. And I also think Haunted Mansion is coming out late enough that it really just doesn't have a factor largely in the overall haul that the Mario movie will have. All right, if we take a look at highest grossing animated films, let's see where it has to hit in order to win. Currently, the Super Mario Brothers movie is in 11th place, although we think now it has actually slid up higher. It's at $1.22 billion. It will overtake Zootopia. It will overtake Finding Dory. It will overtake Despicable Me 3. It will overtake Toy Story 3 and many others. What we're watching for, though, and in all honesty, I think it'll take Frozen. I don't even think that's a question at this point. It needs just about $290 million. Surely it can get there if it legs out over the summer, especially with the sort of Top Gun Maverick holds it has had all through its run so far, dropping percentages that you just wouldn't anticipate. 30%, 35%. These are crazy for a movie that opened as big as it did, and that's how it's in the running to become the biggest. Now, note here, folks, that The Lion King remake is not traditionally held to be an animated film per se. So we don't normally include that one when we're discussing these top animated films. It's not going to be The Lion King, I don't believe, and I don't think it's a fair comparison. I think that's a different sort of movie. And when we're doing these talks, we almost never include The Lion King. It's generally held that Frozen 2 is the top of the animated films, traditionally animated films. This is a tall order to beat Frozen 2, though, and it's a tall order because the Golden Week did not produce as we anticipated. I think we would have been pleased enough if we had seen a combined total of 50 million coming in from Japan and South Korea, but we did not even get close to that. 20 million is the grand total. As I've said, it's going to need like a 5 times hold out of those two markets, getting it to 100 million. They've got to contribute 100 million because I just don't see how it's going to get 400 million plus out of the rest of the world, given its numbers already. Maybe it can do it. Maybe we're going to see an absolute collapse in the other movies that are coming out this summer, but that would have to happen in order for that 400 million more to occur. I would love to be wrong at this point. I would love to see the Super Mario Brothers movie be the #1 spot, overtake Frozen 2 and all that. But it's going to have a Top Gun Maverick kind of run all the way through. Now, the one good news that we have for everybody out there, if you're wanting to be #1, one cool thing, Nintendo has now, and I guess Universal as well, they have now indefinitely paused the digital streaming, PVOD, physical release, all of that. The ability to get this movie in your home is now indefinitely paused. And that is because they want to give this as long as possible. We could potentially see Super Mario Brothers movies playing all the way up until Labor Day. Now, I think it'll be hard to find by Labor Day. But I do think that this is going to be a movie now that we're going to see at least all the way through June until Independence Day, when it'll get pushed out by some other films. But you're going to see it prominently through May and June. I don't think this movie fears The Little Mermaid any longer. I think The Little Mermaid fears this film because the comparisons could be dramatic in terms of the box office comparison. And by the way, be prepared. No, that's a Lion King song. What would we say about The Little Mermaid? I don't know. If audiences don't kiss the girl, how's that? If audiences don't kiss the girl and it comes in way lower than Mario, get ready because we're going to have all kinds of articles out there being rude, crude, and vile to the society at large, saying that people want to go see Mario because he's X, Y, and Z, and they don't want to see The Little Mermaid because she's X, Y, and Z. People don't fall for those kinds of traps. Don't forget about Cinderella starring Brandy. It was a success. People did not mind at all, race swapping at all, and that was a long, long time ago. Don't forget that Ali'i Cravalho, the voice of Moana, played the Little Mermaid. She is of Polynesian and Puerto Rican descent. She played Little Mermaid on a live action show on ABC, and she was welcomed and accepted, and everything was perfectly fine. One exception to that, I will say that if The Little Mermaid performs exceedingly poorly in China and a few other locations around the world, then that I would grant is probably due to issues that need to be quickly resolved around the world, hopefully. That being that people of all backgrounds and skin colors should be accepted and loved and treated with dignity. But that would be the one thing, although I don't think that even in China, it would contribute all that greatly to The Little Mermaid, even if things were reversed. Now, all of that said, we're talking about Mario here. Can it become the #1? I think now that's less likely. And I hate to say that for all of you. I've been wanting to see it do so well, but it's going to have a tremendous hold to get there. It is now more difficult, even though Japan and South Korea, biggest animated movie of all time, it did not hit the points that it needed. It's not even close to the biggest movie of all time for those two markets. But we'll find out. This is a strange little movie. It keeps doing things that are bizarre. And maybe we'll find markets like Mexico and the UK are contributing so well that maybe it legs all the way out to more than $1.4 billion. It's going to need it. But no matter what, it's a huge success, and it's going to launch the Nintendo Cinematic Universe, and that's going to launch a whole lot more money, and a whole lot more influence out of Illumination, out of Universal, out of Nintendo, and away from Disney. Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about that notification bell. Have you thought about becoming a member? You get more exclusive content just like this, and it's only the price of a soda. And folks, we covet your comments. We care about what you think. Each one of you matters So drop one down below. Tell me your thoughts. We read them. We respond. We really care about you. Well, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and you know it, keep having fun.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
Because you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?